Hello, everyone. It's good to be with you all today. I'm Suzanne Kilkus, the resident teacher here in Madison, Wisconsin with Open Door Zen Community, and I bring our community's greetings here to all of you. Summer is in full swing here with the solstice coming up very soon, as evidenced by the lawn mowing that was going on next door, so I had to get up and go close my back door. But let's go ahead and recite our verse of the robe. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. Wearing the universal teaching, I realize the one true nature, thus harmonizing all being. Here we are today. Thank you for your practice. I begin with bowing to our teachers, Zensai Flint and Zensai Peg. To the teachers who have been offering inquiry the last few weeks, Joel and Trudy and Josh, they are all a touchstone for me of our relational Dharma practice. I feel I am in their draft. You know, the experience that racing cyclists describe, those in the back feel like they're being pulled forward by those in the front. I guess it also happens in different ways, but I thought of that when I could feel the pull forward by our wonderful teachers. And I guess we're all in someone's draft in one way, shape, or form. I want to acknowledge the land and ancestors here in Madison, Wisconsin. We know that the ancestral lands and people of our country have suffered deep wounds from colonization. We acknowledge our past so that we can know how to be in the present, to not harm, to live in peace, and to offer our practice and actions for healing of all wounds. And today I also want to acknowledge the migrants and the immigrants who are being held in detention. I sit here and offer the benefits of this practice. And in fact, I want to offer the merit of our practice right now for all of them. We offer the merit of our practice for the welfare of all beings everywhere. May all be relieved of suffering, free from fear, longing, aversion, and ignorance. And may we, together with all beings, realize the awakened way. I know we usually do that at the end of our service or our practice, but I wanted to put particular attention on those who are in detention and those who are the officers who are enacting this all. We're all in this way together, I guess. So a few days ago, I was reminded of a simple way to describe non-duality. We've heard it here before. It is a teaching of Nisargadatta Maharaj, an Indian spiritual teacher of the 20th century. He said, "Love is everything. Love says, I am everything. Wisdom says, I am nothing. Between these two, my life flows." Just going to take a pause there to let you take that in. Love says I am everything. Wisdom says I am nothing. Between these two, my life flows. I think this expresses the absolute and the relative. I understand that Nisargadatta spent his life teaching non-duality. the absolute and the relative. It's what I want to talk to you about today. The Buddha's awakening led him to teach us to approach our life experiences holistically, the absolute realm of universal energy, and the relative realm of this earthly human life. He spent his life offering teachings on healing the myriad and countless ways we cause ourselves suffering. Healing and freedom from suffering result when we practice flexibility in thought, feelings, and actions, and have adaptability as reality arises in each moment. The three operative words here are holistic, flexibility, and adaptability. What I'm going to offer today is something I've been thinking about for quite a while, and because the readings have been coming to me and awarenesses have been coming to me, and I hope I'm going to make some sense here as I talk about these things. We've had lots of assistance along the way from our ancestors to help us remember and to guide us in knowing our intention and choices are everything in awakening into reality. I'll say that again. They have guided us in knowing our intention and choices are everything in awakening into reality. I'll come back to that in a bit. In this first year of grieving the passing of my husband, Steve, I've been paying a good deal of attention in practice to the Heart Sutra and its teaching on boundlessness and form, the absolute and the relative. Prior to Steve's passing, boundlessness was a concept I applied as I looked within and looked out into the world with momentary experiences of the universal energy of all forms and states of being. As I speak about it right now, I have a sense of it. It's nothing special, really, just what is. But since Steve died, I've wondered, where is he? How is he now, if he is? I feel him, but I wonder if that is my own nervous system's attachment to my knowledge of him. Is he an expression of the universal energy that forms all of us? And that he's just changed clothes, like the Dalai Lama has said about dying. During our spring retreat here, Flint adapted the Heart Sutra, using the words universal energy rather than boundlessness and form, as they are one and the same thing. For example, universal energy is the nature of all things. It neither arises nor perishes, neither stains nor purifies, neither increases nor decreases. This simple change of wording opened the absolute for me, not in an intellectual way, but in a sense of being a form of universal energy as we all are, as all things are, which of course is one of the basic principles of quantum physics. I've been able to hold Steve in this too. He is no longer physically here, and he is universally here. I think, if I'm understanding, this is the holistic teaching of the Buddha, boundlessness and form, the universal energy of all beings and life. Now I'm going to do a shift in attending to the relative side of this equation and the question of enlightenment. I want to continue with teachings from Suzuki Roshi, which we never can go astray with his teachings. And I was so grateful for Joel's offering last week about Suzuki Roshi's. There's a new book coming out in July of his teachings titled Becoming Yourself. It was edited by Sojin Mel Weitzman before he died, and Juru Rutschman Byler, who I think was, or maybe still is, the abbot of Tassajara Mountain Center. The title refers to what happens while we are in sitting practice. We're not meditating as such, Suzuki Roshi teaches. We're becoming ourselves. So the question arises, How do we become ourself, our true self? It occurs, it's uncovered as we practice, as we pay attention to the experience of the moment, moment to moment. Suzuki Roshi and Ehe Dogen understood it this way. In the description of the book on Amazon, the reviewer says this about what is offered. Becoming yourself is not meant to be understood as an idea. It is meant to be tried out as a way of being. It is just to sit, a practice of wholeheartedly being as you are, moment after moment, no matter what is happening. It is a practice of deeply connecting with how it feels to be alive in your surroundings, whether on a cushion or not, or stepping forward from that connection and stepping forward from that connection. It is opening to your life wherever you are and finding right there a deep well of innate wisdom, compassion, and care. I don't know who that reviewer is, but when I listened to a talk by Norman Fisher, given about this book and about a specific chapter in it, this offering very much sounded like what Norman said. Norman gave this talk earlier this spring, and he read sections from a short chapter in the book, a chapter on taking refuge in Buddha. To take refuge with Buddha means to become one with Buddha, or to open to our true nature, which is not different than Buddha, than awakening. In referring to this, Dogen uses a phrase which means responsive communion in Japanese. This is in the relative experience of being human. This term, relative communion, feels sacred to me as it requires softness and ease, both fully human qualities of love. Suzuki Roshi says in this chapter, what characterizes our practice as becoming ourselves is the life we live that flows from our sitting practice. Here's the heart of what I want to say today. In this chapter, Suzuki Roshi says, you should not suppose that enlightenment in this relative experience, although it is there, you should not suppose it will always be experienced in terms of consciousness. For example, some vision or kensho experience. Those are my comments. But by carrying out your activities with subtle caution, your experience will become deeper and your consciousness will become more and more mature and smooth. You may say, enlightenment is the maturity of your experience of everyday life. I just think that is elegant. So in this relative world, enlightenment is about our everyday life experience, our intentions and choices and actions, including thoughts, sensations, and feelings. All of this is the energy of life, the universal energy that we are all made of. As the Heart Sutra says, boundlessness is form, form is boundlessness. I wondered what the term subtle caution mean. Remember that phrase? Excuse me. He said it earlier, but by carrying out your activities with subtle caution, your experience will become deeper and your consciousness will become more and more mature and smooth. So I wondered what that term subtle caution means. Norman offered that it is to do everything with great care and love. Take care of ourselves and others in this way, everything in this way, nothing left out of this ethic. It is appamada. The word caution reminds us how fragile everything is. There's nothing and no one just to throw away. When we practice in this way, our life flows more easily with reality. I loved Trudy's message of fear and flow and cluelessness a couple of weeks ago. When we hold our consciousness outside of reality, in fear by criticizing, judging, resisting, not accepting things as they are, our consciousness becomes lumpy and bumpy. I love this description. It describes the somatic experience. You can feel it in your body, lumpy and bumpy. This is of being out of flow of reality, like going from a smooth superhighway to an unmaintained pothole-filled road. When we stand with reality, in cooperation with life, no matter what shows up, the full catastrophe, as Zorba the Greek described as life, of the 10,000 joys and the 10,000 sorrows, this is enlightenment. I recall in Beginner's Mind, Suzuki Roshi said that he didn't think there were enlightened persons, only enlightened activity. I actually find that very comforting and relaxing. It shifts the focus of practice in our relative life from seeking enlightenment to taking charge of our lives and the path by considering how we want to live, naming our intention, and making our choices accordingly. It reminds me of Marie Howe's poem, The Maples, that Joel offered us or brought to us a couple of weeks ago, which I'm going to read again in a moment. It points to what Suzuki Roshi taught. Enlightenment is the maturity of our experience in everyday life. I'll close my remarks with reading Marie's poem to remind us of a necessary daily question. The maples. I asked the stand of maples behind the house, how should I live my life? They said, shh, shh, shh. How should I live, I asked, and the leaves seemed to ripple and gleam. A bird called from a branch in its own tongue, and a branch across the yard, another bird answered. A squirrel scrambled up a trunk, then along the branch, the length of a branch. Stand still, I thought. See how long you can bear that. Breathe. So I've talked about these concepts, these ideas, absolute and relative and enlightenment, that we talk about a fair amount here. And so I'm wondering what your experience is that you might offer us all, or anything else that you might offer us all today. Thank you.
Hi, Suzanne.
Yes, Jessica, hello.
I I was also just so like I could feel it when you read the statement from Suzuki Roshi about let's see, I wrote it down, subtle caution. And I love it. And I wondered what I loved how you broke down what Norman Fisher said about it as well, about being filled with care and love. I wondered about the Christian idea of conscience. It actually sounds kind of similar, like when we're living from a place of,
Mhm,
or maybe, as the Metta Sutta says, do nothing the wise would reprove.
mhm,
It's that kind of flavor as well.
mhm. It does. Thank you, Jessica. That's a nice connection. I was I brought this reading to our Sangha a couple of weeks ago for a Sunday practice, and I was asked, why are you drawn to that? And I've wondered that myself, but as soon as I heard Norman read it, I had to go back and replay it several times in order to not just think about it, but to really take it in my body. That what the relative world provides us is all of this opportunity for experiencing our life wholeheartedly, fully. And that's what awakening is. That's what enlightenment is. And so then when I considered that subtle caution as well, it really points to how fragile life is as well.
And there's
And
an attunement there.
yes, we're fragile and we're sturdy, and we need to hold both, fragile and resilient, and we need to hold both.
Really, thank you, Suzanne.
Yeah, thank you, Jessica.
Okay, well, we'll start with Bridget.
Hello, Suzanne. So
Hello,
thank you.
Bridget. Good to see you.
I was particularly touched by your remarks about your late husband, Steve, because it's now been 20 years since my husband passed away. And there's still times when um, I have a memory of our time together or a place where we've been or I'm with some mutual friends that we had. And that sense of his presence is just envelops me. And so sometimes there's still that a little pang of sadness, recognizing how much I still miss him in
Yeah.
that presence. And then how very much I can be joyful that we had the years together that we had. So um, it's good to know how you're experiencing your life and how you're taking your practice um, with you in this experience. So I just want to express my gratitude.
Oh, thank you, Bridget. Actually, I've thought so many times, I don't know how I'd be without this practice. I don't know, I don't know where I would be or how I could possibly face what this is all about. So, with you saying that in your, where you are in your life, with this experience, early on, I read something from a neuroscientist who studies grief, and she said that our partners are our external regulators. They're our external pacemakers. And that really struck me as, oh, that's what's happening in my nervous system. My regulator isn't here physically.
Right.
So my nervous system keeps scanning. You know how Flint says that we're always scanning, or I guess that really comes out of psychoneuroimmunology. How we're always scanning for something to land on, so that we can orient ourselves or regulate ourselves. I am appreciating greatly the experience of how we human beings attach and negotiate a new attachment after partners die or loved ones die, pass on.
I'll make one final remark because this wasn't my idea, but a friend of one of my late husband's biological daughters asked for one of Walter's shirts and asked me to send it. And so that was sent on. And she had a small bear made out of one of his shirts, and its stomach sticks out, it's bulbously. But the idea is that you hold this against your heart and press so that when you want to hug, you have that feeling. And I would pick it up fairly frequently in those early years, and even still, I'll grab it and go, "Oh, I missed you." But it's just that anything is that you can hold that he held can be help you that do that regulation.
Oh, that's a wonderful idea. Thanks for giving it to me.
All right. Well, if you want a picture of the one that was made for me, I'll send it to you. Just text me or let me know.
I would very much like that. Thank you, Bridget. Thank you so
All right.
much.
Bye.
Oh, there's Kathy. Hey.
Oh, hi. Well,
Hi.
your conversation about regulation brought up something else for me too, and that's, as infants, our primary caregiver really is the person who helps us to regulate and who teaches us to regulate. And I think then we make a transference from that relationship to the other significant people in our lives, and it's very, very helpful if we're lucky. If we're
If
lucky,
we're
right?
lucky, yes.
And
Yes.
it's really helpful to be conscious of that, to know that. There's something about knowing
Yes.
that it not only makes it holy, but somehow, I don't know, it just is important.
Yes.
But yeah, so thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And the other thing I want to share,
Kathy,
it's a little,
Kathy, if I could
yeah,
just comment on that, in
oh,
my
sure,
work with relationship counseling, I would teach couples all the time those three things that we're tracking for all the time.
right,
And, and that if we don't regulate to each other, that's what causes a great deal of conflict or tension between partners. So that's
right,
where skills in how to be in relationship would often get
right.
taught. So thank you for speaking to that.
You're welcome, and thank you. And the other thing, I'm reading the book. People may have read it. It's from 2006, called "My Stroke of Insight" or "A Stroke of Insight,"
Oh, yes,
and it's the
yes, Miller.
neuroscientist
Yes.
who's describing how she lost her left brain, and now I'm thinking about my relative self and lived within her right brain and felt this beautiful sense of euphoria and universality and all the things that we talk about when we think
Yes.
about enlightenment. And it occurred to me that within our physical self, we have both parts
Yes.
physically within ourselves. And
Yes.
it occurs to me that when we sit, we probably are attending to the right part of our brain, the quiet, universal, peaceful part of our brain. And one of the things she loved is that she got to make the choice about what parts of her old self, the conditioned self, she got to relearn. She didn't have to relearn all of it. And she could make the
Yes.
choice. And I think that's what we do too. We make a choice about what we're gonna keep reinforcing in that part of our brain. So it's just interesting to me that there's our physical structure actually coincides or resonates with these teachings. So
Yes.
thank you for that.
You're welcome. Thank you for speaking to that, Kathy. In March, I attended a conference and there was a scientist there who was talking about she's identified the place in our brain where that spiritual practice arises from, where our longing for spiritual practice arises from. So there is, this physical structure we have, this physical organism we have, is just filled with miracles.
It's true. It's
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We have Bonnie.
Hello, Bonnie.
Hello, Suzanne. Thank you. Thank you. I want to go back to something that Kathy was mentioning, the first thing, this notion of, the ways that our partners are external regulators for us. And it really landed for me in a big way today around my role as caregiver, care partner. And it gave me just something to be with in the future about. It's a constant renegotiation because of, it's not grief around loss of partners in form, but loss of partner in behavior, and so there's this real, more or less, and it's not an every single day kind of thing, but an unexpected regulation of, okay, who's showing up in this moment and how to respond to it. And I also have, it lands around noticing how my own, what you're talking about with subtle caution, the fragility of everything, how times when I don't pause for long enough to respond in this the best I can, although I know I'm always responding in the best way I can in the moment, but how those two things are constantly in motion in a new way, in this new version of who we both are in this new role that we're playing with each other. So I really thank you. It landed, although I heard you talk about this before, that particular piece just really landed for me today. So I'm really grateful. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Bonnie. I have a family member, a close family member, whose partner is also in significant dementia. And he talks a lot about not knowing who to land on or where to land on. Not in any kind of dependency way, but where he can get his bearings. And so we've talked about this in our family quite a bit, that we are, as human beings, as human organisms, we are always looking for something and someone to establish ourselves. And so I think that's just the great benefit of practice, is we can establish ourselves here in ourselves, as we also establish ourselves with each other. Thank you, Bonnie.
Thank you.
We have Joel.
Hello, Joel.
Hi, Suzanne. Thank you so much for this. And thanks to Jessica and Bonnie and Bridget and Kathy for what they were sharing as well. I was with a Zazen and sharing group of Appamada yesterday, a noontime meeting of people, and we are reading Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. And there was a passage that struck me as related to what has been shared so far. I mean, I don't, again, I have a mind that makes associations that I can't quite explain all the time. But there's a section from what we read yesterday that I wanted to share with you, if I can find it here.
Please.
It's the third section of the first part of the book, and it's called. It begins with some things about control, and I've been thinking about this ever since. Whatever we see is changing, losing its balance. The reason everything looks beautiful is because it is out of balance, but its background is always in perfect harmony. This is how everything exists in the realm of Buddha nature. losing its balance against a background of perfect balance.
Mhm.
So if you see things without realizing the background of Buddha nature, everything appears to be in the form of suffering. But if you understand the background of existence, you realize that suffering itself is how we live and how we extend our life.
Mhm.
And just as Kat was saying, I'm just struck by the fact that we physically have this capacity to focus in on an event and the capacity to see things peripherally, and to see a holistic, as you were referring before, a holistic connection among things, which gives us a sense of beauty, which gives us a sense of, even in pain, a sense of compassion, self-compassion, and the unfolding of the universe that we can connect with somehow.
Mhm.
I'm just very curious about this person that says they've identified a part of the brain where the way-seeking mind arises. I'm using the wrong words, but where that
No,
arises,
but that's what she meant.
yeah.
Yes. Mhm.
And somehow I think that is bound to be something like, as uh, Kathy was pointing to, that it has to do something with the right side of the brain, and that we can that watching ourselves in meditation, wanting and wanting and wanting, is not just that's not the same as wanting.
No.
It's watching. It gives a framework of appreciation or something.
Mhm. Mhm.
Seems right. Anyway, I
Mhm.
just wanted to share that and
Oh,
just
thank
say
you so much, Joel.
I'm so
Because
grateful. I'm
you
so
you
grateful.
inspired me to continue Suzuki Roshi's teachings, and I'm very eager to get this new book because it sounds like it just really extends and expands how he lived and what he offered to all of us. Kind of
Mhm.
goes just deeper and deeper. Yes.
Well, and thank you for reading the line about the maples. You go and you say, "How should I live my life?" And they say,
Yeah. Yes. Just yeah, just settle down there. Yes. Yes. Thank you so much, Joel.
We have Rose.
Hello, Rosemarie.
Hi, Suzanne.
So
And
good to
thank you.
see you.
Good to see you too. And this subtle caution phrase really caught me too. And in thinking about all that life has to offer and how we respond, I think that I look at the subtle caution as also adding care to this and self-care, because
Yes.
I'm interested in so many things.
Mm-hmm.
And the question of, well, what do I have the bandwidth for?
Yes.
That I can stay with. And getting back to what Joel was saying, I was in the same meeting with him because there was I wrote something down about, because the section begins with, if you're trying to control something, give them a lot of space. And I wrote down, watch them without trying to control them. So when I think of making decisions, how do we want to live? How do I want to live? To how do I cultivate caution without trying to control?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's like to me that's a subtle caution,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like a big question, kind of.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I would extend it how to exercise caution without control or fear.
Oh, yeah. Which control is probably fear is probably behind the.
Kind of go together. Yeah.
Yeah, go together. Yeah. Yeah, fear is a big one,
Mm-hmm.
and might even motivate wanting to grab onto things.
Mm-hmm. Didn't Suzuki Roshi, or maybe it was another teacher, who used the image of cows in a pasture?
That was the same, I think, right? No, that was the same article, same section.
Same
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Give them space. It's reminding me of that very popular book this last year, Mel Robbins' book on Let Them.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Oh, it's very popular. Oprah made it really big this year. But the whole premise behind it is step back, take a pause. Let life be the way life is, and then decide how you're going to respond to it.
Give it space.
Give it space. In fact, I just came across this morning something from William Blake, 18th century poet. We are put on earth for a little space that we might learn to bear the beams of love. We are put on earth for a little space that we might learn to bear the beams of love.
And that's a little bit like, can we stand it to be still? Is that what the
Right, the end of her poem is, can I
Yeah.
stand it? Yes.
Yeah, connecting the care with the caution instead of,
Yes.
Thank you so much. Very rich, Suzanne.
Thank you. Thank you for coming forward. I think we have time for one more, if there's anybody. Otherwise, we can sit quietly for a few minutes.
We have Becky.
Yes, Becky, hello.
Oh, I was just sitting here and thinking all of this and just wanted to say I'm wearing the t-shirt of a very close friend who died a day and a week from now. And it's one of the things I've taken up, especially living here in assisted living where people die around you pretty often. And so that's one of the things I've taken up is to wear a piece of their clothing until it falls apart practically. And I've been singing a lot here the song that is from Thich Nhat Hanh's. I'm just going to sing it. No coming, no going, no after, no before. I hold you close to me. Where'd that word go? Hold you close to me. I release you to be so free. For you are in me, and I am in you. For you are in me, and I am in you.
Thank you, Becky. So let's recite the refuges, taking refuge in all that we are here today. I take refuge in Buddha. I take refuge in Dharma. I take refuge in Sangha. We take refuge in Buddha before all being, immersing body and mind deeply in the way, awakening true mind. We take refuge in Dharma before all being, entering deeply the merciful ocean of Buddha's way. We take refuge in Sangha before all being, bringing harmony to everyone free from hindrance. Now all being has completely taken refuge in Buddha. Now all being has completely taken refuge in Dharma. Now all being has completely taken refuge in Sangha. Thank you, everyone. I'm giving you a Midwest wave. We either do fingers, hey, or a wave. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Turning it back over to Jessica.
Thank you so much, Suzanne, and thank you, everyone. Appamada's programs and facilities are supported through your generosity, and your support makes a huge difference. I'm placing a link in the chat for Open Doors and Community and for Appamada if you'd like to make a contribution on the website. Thank you all so much. See you next time.